Mabesei, you don't seem to understand basic premises of our laws when it comes to demonstrations, protests, and marches. You just seem completely clueless on that. You seem completely clueless about the concept, the actual concept of freedom of speech. You don't seem to understand why it's important.
No, I'm pretty sure that I do, and I don't think anything about my comments here that you seem to be responding to dictate that I don't.
Okay? You want to destroy freedom of speech. Flat out. When you make the comment, well, what does it accomplish when you let these people have these marches? What it accomplishes is freedom of speech.
No, that's when the government doesn't intervene in people's marches or protests. Private citizens are free to counter-protest in whichever way they see fit, as long as they do not break the law, such as assaulting people, etc. And I could have swore, if you bring those comments back up, I already said that preemptive violence against fascists was stupid. As in, I disagree with that, right? Like, you should wait till fascists try to fuck with you, then fuck up the fascists. You don't preemptively, like, punch people in the head and stuff, though it is really funny. So I don't know who this person is you're talking to, but it's definitely not me.
Okay? Because they're allowed to do those kinds of marches or demonstrations that they want, you are also able to have your marches or demonstrations that you want. You allow everyone to say those things. And if you want to be there to protest them, then you stand on the sidelines, you don't interrupt them, you don't try to stop them from having their say, having their march, having their demonstration.
Nothing I've said is incompatible with any of this. Fucking counter-protesting does not stop the initial protest. I mean, maybe the goal, it may possibly would be to get them to stop, you know, because shouting Nazi slogans is bad, okay? Like, maybe that's it. But, like, if they stop, that's on their own volition. Like, they don't have to stop just because we're, you know, yelling fucking bash the fash. Like, that doesn't, like, what? Like, that doesn't follow. Like, that's really fucking silly. Like I don't understand why you're opposed to counter protests.
Okay, hold up whatever signs you want on the sidelines that say you suck or whatever it is. Fascists go away, whatever, right? But what you don't do is purposely try to make so much noise that their demonstration can't be heard.
Why not exactly? Like, why? Have you ever seen like any like video footage of counter protests against neo-Nazis, the Westboro Baptist Church, etc.? Most of the time they're organized and they just that's what they do. They essentially just like shout them down with their own slogan, with, you know, their own slogans, etc. And then the other guys are there, whatever, but the other side is, you know, just so like big or whatever that it just takes basically all focus away from the more bigoted protest. And I would call that a successful counter-protest. And I don't know why you would disagree with that. I mean, they didn't force them off or make them leave. They left on their own because they decided that what they're doing wasn't working because no one was siding with them because they suck.
You don't stop them from marching. You certainly don't get in their face and try to and threaten violence. Okay? That's not cool. Okay? Westboro Baptist Church. Okay, I'm sure you're quite aware of them. Okay? A lot of people have wanted to stop them from being able to do what they've done, to do the kind of picketing they've done. Okay, the reason why they haven't is because of our laws. They have the right to say that shit. You have the right to say whatever shit you want. The groups that are dedicated to freedom of speech have defended Westboro Baptist Church. They've defended the KKK. They've defended anyone who wants to exercise their freedom of speech.
Okay, so I finally get your angle. So what you want is a form of counter-protest that is almost surefire to not result in some kind of violent conflict like we saw on like Saturday or whatever. And to that I say, it's an admirable position to take, right? But with all these restrictions and shit, it's at some point with all this shit in place, you would just have to say, you know, fuck it to the counter protest, right? Like you might as well just fucking make counter protesting illegal, because like what's the point if you're not gonna shout them down, if you're not gonna challenge them and get in their face or whatever the fuck in any way, right? You might as well not even be there.
That's how that works. Now, you seem to think Black Lives Matter is great, but they interrupt vigils to say, well, how can you mourn for all these gay people, you and your privileged existence? Black people die all the time, and I don't see you mourning for them. They interrupt vigils to do that shit. They interrupted the Bernie Sanders speech and completely destroyed Bernie Sanders. Probably one of the main big reasons, I should say, not the main reasons, but one of the big reasons why people lost faith in Bernie Sanders is because Black Lives Matter put him in a position to either be someone with no backbone or a racist. Black Lives Matter screwed over Bernie Sanders, and I'll never forgive them for that. Never.
Yeah, and I disagree with both of those things that they did. I mean, that's just how that is, right? Like, there's going to be missteps in a movement like that, especially one that's doing a kind of like chapter based thing, where they're not picking any sort of central leadership, but instead of electing and appointing it locally within chapters, right? And them all having somewhat of slight variations on goals and all that. So there's going to be stuff like that. But I mean, that's fine if you want to hold a grudge, but I don't know what that even meant or how that was related to this thing about freedom of speech, or how they violated anyone's freedom of speech.
I truly think that Bernie Sanders would have had a chance of winning had he been the one that was selected. Any little thing that detracted from him being able to be selected as the primary candidate, I'm going to be railing against. Because I think he had a chance. I'm not saying he would have won, but at least he would have had a chance. More than Hillary, anyway. Now I can picture people saying, you're misogynistic because you're... Yeah. If you want to have your freedom of speech, then start your own march. Start your own protest. Start your own demonstration. Do your own picketing. But stop trying to stop others from being able to do the same. You do not get to have different standards or special rights just because you're considered a marginalized group by the progressive stack. Sorry.
It is not a special right to counter protest. That makes no sense at all. Counter protests are freedom of speech. There cannot be a discourse without dissent. It makes no sense to attempt to corral in counter protesting unless it's from your now somewhat of obvious angle that you just don't want any kind of physical confrontation to happen, which, as I said before, is admirable. But honestly, as I've also said again in the comment section, it is unavoidable when it comes to situations like these, where you have people who want to displace and destroy people, and there are people who don't care much for being displaced or destroyed.